367 AD. A Roman scribe discovers a pattern in the empire's financial records. What he finds will never make it into history books. By the end of this video, I'll show you what was on that scroll, and it will change everything you think you know about Rome's fall. If you love historical mysteries that help you relax, subscribe now. Because this secret waited 1,600 years to be told. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let's begin. His name was Marcus Flavius. Just a scribe. He recorded taxes, grain shipments, military expenses. Nobody important. Nobody powerful. But Marcus saw patterns. For months, he noticed something in the numbers. Rome's wealth was disappearing. Not stolen by barbarians. Not lost in battles. It was being drained systematically from the inside. He compared records from Gaul, Britain, Egypt, Hispania. The pattern was everywhere. Consistent. Organized. Impossible to ignore. Have you ever noticed something everyone else missed? Something that made you question reality? Comment below. Because Marcus felt exactly that. Let me show you what Marcus discovered. 350 AD, Rome collects 10 million denarii in taxes from Gaul. Military records show 8 million spent on legions there. Where did the other 2 million go? 355 AD, Egypt ships 500,000 tons of grain to Rome. Records show only 380,000 tons arrive. Where's the rest? 360 AD, Britain produces 50 tons of silver. Rome receives 35 tons. The difference? Gone. Vanished. Year after year. Province after province. Marcus calculated. In just 20 years, Rome lost the equivalent of 15 years of total imperial revenue. Not in one catastrophic event. In small, constant leaks. Like a body bleeding out. One drop at a time. But who was taking it? Where was it going? Marcus's answer will shock you. But first, you need to understand something historians refuse to admit. History says Rome fell in 476 AD when Odoacer deposed the last emperor. Clean. Simple. One date. That's a lie. Rome didn't fall in a day. It was murdered slowly over 150 years. And the killers weren't barbarians. Think about it. How does the most powerful empire in human history just collapse? Armies that conquered the known world, suddenly helpless? Roads and aqueducts that lasted centuries, suddenly abandoned? It doesn't make sense. Unless it was designed to fail. I know what you're thinking. Conspiracy theory, right? But hear me out. Because what Marcus discovered wasn't a theory. It was documented, systematic, and it involved the highest levels of Roman power. Would you believe it if you saw the evidence? Or would you think Marcus was paranoid? Let me know in the comments. Marcus didn't find one corrupt official. He found a network. Provincial governors in Gaul, tax collectors in Egypt, military commanders in Britain, senators in Rome itself. All connected. All taking their piece. But here's what's terrifying. They weren't just stealing money. They were redirecting it. Building their own power bases. Creating private armies. Establishing parallel economies. While Rome weakened, These men grew stronger. Marcus traced the flow of wealth. It led to private estates, fortified villas in the countryside, self-sufficient communities that didn't need Rome anymore. The empire wasn't collapsing. It was being deliberately dismantled, piece by piece, and the people doing it were the ones supposed to protect it. By 367 AD, Marcus had documented everything: names, numbers, routes, a complete map of Rome's internal destruction. He wrote it all down on a single scroll. And then he disappeared. What happened to Marcus? And what was written on that scroll? The answer connects to something even darker. Something about Rome's military that no one talks about. Let's talk about Rome's greatest weapon. The legions. Disciplined. Unstoppable. The reason Rome conquered the world. But by 350 AD, something changed. Roman citizens stopped joining the military. The legions started recruiting barbarians, Germanic tribes, Goths, Vandals, men who had no loyalty to Rome. History tells us this was practical. Rome needed soldiers. Barbarians needed jobs. Simple. But what if it wasn't practical? What if it was intentional? Think about it. If you wanted to destroy an empire from within, what's the first thing you'd do? You'd weaken its military. Not by attacking it. By changing who serves in it. By 370 AD, entire legions were composed of foreign soldiers, led by foreign generals, defending Roman borders. Or were they? Here's where it gets interesting. Rome created something called foederati, allied barbarian tribes, given land inside Roman territory. In exchange, they'd defend Rome's borders. Sounds reasonable, right? Except these tribes weren't loyal to Rome. They were loyal to their own chiefs. Chiefs who were part of that same network Marcus discovered. The same network draining Rome's wealth was now controlling Rome's military. Let me give you an example. Alaric, king of the Visigoths. In 410 AD, he sacked Rome. History calls him a barbarian invader. But Alaric was a Roman general, trained by Rome, paid by Rome. He spent years demanding payment for his services. Rome refused, so he took what he was owed. Alaric wasn't an invader. He was an employee collecting his salary. The barbarians weren't destroying Rome. They were replacing it. And the Roman elite, they were helping them do it. Why? Because they saw the future. And it didn't include the empire. What does this have to do with Marcus's scroll? Everything. Because Marcus didn't just document the theft of money. He documented the theft of Rome itself. If this is making you rethink everything you learned about history, hit that subscribe button. Because what comes next is even more shocking. 313 AD, Constantine converts to Christianity. Rome becomes a Christian empire. History presents this as spiritual awakening, a new age of faith. But what if it was political calculation? Christianity had something Rome needed: organization. A network that spread across the entire empire, from Britain to Egypt. A network that transcended borders, languages, armies. A network more powerful than Rome itself. The church had bishops in every major city. They controlled charity. education, social services. They had their own hierarchy, their own courts, their own economy. By 350 AD, the church was running a parallel government. And here's the key: the church was tax-exempt. Every donation to the church was wealth leaving the Roman state. Every monastery built was land removed from imperial control. Every bishop ordained was power shifting away from Rome. Marcus saw this in his records. Massive transfers of wealth from state to church. Legally, systematically, encouraged by the emperors themselves. Why would emperors weaken their own power? Because they were hedging their bets. They knew Rome was failing. The church was the future. So they transferred their wealth and influence to the institution that would survive. The fall of Rome wasn't religious. It was a corporate merger. Does this sound cynical? Maybe. But Marcus's numbers don't lie. While Rome crumbled, something else was growing. Great estates. Massive private properties owned by senators, generals, and bishops. These weren't just farms. They were self-contained worlds, with their own armies, their own courts, their own economies. Complete independence from Rome. Historians call this feudalism. But it didn't appear after Rome fell. It grew during Rome's collapse. Because people were creating it. The same people stealing from Rome's treasury were building their own kingdoms. By 400 AD, if you lived in Gaul or Hispania, you didn't depend on Rome. You depended on your local lord, your local bishop, your local warlord. Rome still existed, but it was irrelevant. The empire had been replaced, not by barbarians, by Romans themselves. And Marcus knew. He documented the creation of these estates, the transfer of land, the building of fortifications, the establishment of private mints producing private currency. He saw the future being built inside the present. On his scroll, he wrote, "Rome is not falling. It is being reborn, but not as an empire, as 1,000 kingdoms." He was right. But there's one piece missing. The final revelation. The thing that makes everything make sense. What happened to Marcus? And why did his scroll disappear? The answer is in part 3. Marcus finished his scroll in 368 AD. He knew what he had was dangerous. So he made copies, hid them in different locations, and prepared to present his findings to Emperor Valentinian. He never got the chance. 3 days before his scheduled audience with the emperor, Marcus was found dead. Officially, a heart attack. He was 34 years old. His home was ransacked. All his records destroyed. The original scroll disappeared. But Marcus was clever. He'd given one copy to a friend, a Christian priest named Paulinus, with instructions, "If anything happens to me, get this to someone who can use it." Paulinus tried. He traveled to Ravenna, tried to reach imperial officials. No one would see him. Finally, desperate, he gave the scroll to Bishop Ambrose of Milan, one of the most powerful men in the Christian world. Ambrose read it and burned it. Why? Because Ambrose was part of the network. His family owned massive estates in Gaul. His brother was a provincial governor. His wealth came from the same system Marcus was exposing. The church wasn't just complicit. It was orchestrating. But Ambrose made a mistake. Before burning the scroll, he wrote a letter to another bishop, warning him about Marcus's dangerous lies, describing what was in the scroll. That letter survived. It's in the Vatican archives. Catalogue number 4721. Few historians know it exists. I've seen it. And what it describes matches everything I've been telling you. The letter is dated March 369 AD. Ambrose writes to Bishop Damasus in Rome. Let me read you excerpts. A scribe named Marcus has compiled records claiming systematic theft from the empire. He names senators, governors, and yes, even bishops. He claims we are building a new world order on the ruins of Rome. His calculations are accurate. His sources legitimate. If this scroll becomes public, it will undermine everything we've worked to build. The man is dealt with. The scroll destroyed. But I write to warn you, others may have copies. We must be vigilant. That's it. Ambrose admits Marcus was right. Admits to destroying evidence. Implies involvement in Marcus's death. This letter has been in the Vatican for 1,600 years. Hidden in plain sight. Why hasn't anyone talked about it? Because it destroys the narrative. The story of Rome's fall as tragic accident. Barbarian invasions, moral decay, complexity beyond control. The truth is simpler and darker. Rome was murdered by its own elite, who then created the medieval world in their image. The fall of Rome wasn't a fall. It was a revolution. From the top. If you're still watching, you're one of the few who know this truth. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Because history has more secrets. And we are going to find them all. Let's get practical. How exactly did this economic bleeding work? Imagine you're a Roman governor in Gaul. The emperor demands 1 million denarii in taxes from your province. You collect 1.5 million. You send Rome 1 million. You keep 500,000. Where does that money go? Into your private estates. Your personal army. Bribes to keep other officials quiet. Now multiply that by every province. Every governor. Every tax collector. Every military commander. Every year for 100 years. The wealth doesn't disappear. It's concentrated. In the hands of maybe 500 families across the empire. By 400 AD, these families controlled more wealth than the emperor. More land. More soldiers. The state was bankrupt. But the elite were richer than ever. When the barbarians took over, these families stayed in power. They just had new titles. Roman senator became feudal lord. Roman governor became count or duke. Same people. Same power. Different system. The fall of Rome was the greatest wealth transfer in human history. And it was planned. Let's get practical. How exactly did this economic bleeding work? Imagine you're a Roman governor in Gaul. The emperor demands 1 million denarii in taxes from your province. You collect 1.5 million. You send Rome 1 million. You keep 500,000. Where does that money go? Into your private estates. Your personal army. bribes to keep other officials quiet. Now multiply that by every province, every governor, every tax collector, every military commander, every year for 100 years. The wealth doesn't disappear. It's concentrated in the hands of maybe 500 families across the empire. By 400 AD, these families controlled more wealth than the emperor, more land, more soldiers. The state was bankrupt, but the elite were richer than ever. When the barbarians took over, these families stayed in power. They just had new titles. Roman senator became feudal lord. Roman governor became count or duke. Same people, same power, different system. The fall of Rome was the greatest wealth transfer in human history. And it was planned. Every empire follows the same pattern. Rise, peak, decline, fall. Historians call it the cycle of civilizations. It's inevitable, they say. Natural. But what if it's not natural? What if it's engineered? Let me show you the pattern Marcus discovered. Stage 1. Expansion. The empire grows, conquers new territories. Wealth floods in. Everyone benefits. This is the golden age. Stage 2. Consolidation. The empire stops expanding. Now it maintains what it has. Growth slows, but everything still works. Stage 3. Extraction. This is where it changes. The elite realize growth has ended, so they shift strategy. Instead of growing the pie, they take a bigger slice. They start extracting wealth from the system. Stage 4. Collapse. The system can't sustain the extraction. It breaks down. The empire falls. But the elite don't fall. They transition to the new system. Richer than before. Rome followed this exactly. So did Egypt, Persia, the Mongols, Spain, Britain, every empire. And here's what's terrifying. We are watching it happen again. Right now, I'm not going to tell you which country. You already know. But look at the patterns. Wealth concentration at levels not seen in a century. The richest people controlling more resources than entire nations. Private companies more powerful than governments. Infrastructure crumbling while private estates flourish. Public services cut while private security expands. Military increasingly privatized. Mercenaries replacing national armies. Contractors making more than soldiers. Political corruption normalized. Officials openly serving private interests. The revolving door between government and corporations. Power shifting to transnational entities. Corporations. NGOs. International organizations. Networks that transcend borders. Does any of this sound familiar? It should. It's the same pattern Marcus documented in Rome. Stage 3. Extraction. The question isn't if the system will collapse. It's when. And what comes after. Will we learn from Rome? Or repeat the same mistakes? If this is making you uncomfortable, good. It should. But don't look away. Subscribe. Share this video. Because more people need to understand these patterns. Before it's too late. So what do we do? Marcus couldn't stop Rome's fall. One man with a scroll couldn't fight a network of the most powerful people in the empire. But he did something important. He documented it, left a record, so future generations could understand what happened. That's what we can do. Document, understand, recognize the patterns. When you see wealth being extracted from public systems into private hands, recognize it. When you see power shifting from elected governments to unaccountable networks, recognize it. When you see infrastructure crumbling while the elite build private paradises, recognize it. When you see military power privatized, recognize it. These are the signs. The same signs Marcus saw. Recognizing the pattern doesn't mean we can stop it. Rome couldn't be saved by 368 AD. The extraction had gone too far. But we can be honest about it. We can stop pretending it's natural. Stop accepting the narrative that systems just collapse on their own. They don't. They're deliberately dismantled. By people with names and addresses. Marcus knew their names. We can know ours. So what was really written on Marcus's scroll? Beyond the numbers. Beyond the names. There was a final passage. Bishop Ambrose mentioned it in his letter, called it philosophical rambling. Marcus wrote, "An empire is not buildings, not borders, not armies. An empire is an agreement, that we are stronger together than apart. That we sacrifice individual gain for collective good. That we build for the future, not just consume the present. When the elite break that agreement, the empire ends. Not immediately, but inevitably. Future generations will ask, how did Rome fall? Tell them the truth. It didn't fall. It was abandoned. By the very people sworn to protect it." Marcus was right. Rome didn't fall to barbarians. It fell to Romans, who decided their private interests mattered more than the common good. The same choice every civilization faces. The same choice we face now. That's the real secret of Rome's fall. Not complexity. Not inevitability. Choice. The choice to extract or to build. To hoard or to share. To unite or to divide. Rome made its choice. We are making ours. Let me tell you about the world that came after Rome. The medieval period. The Dark Ages. History portrays it as chaos, collapse, the loss of civilization. But for the Roman elite who orchestrated the transition, it was a golden age. The senator who owned estates in Gaul became the Duke of Aquitaine. His family ruled for 800 years. The general who controlled legions in Hispania became the king of Visigothic Spain. His descendants ruled for centuries. The bishop who accumulated church lands became a prince-bishop, wielding both spiritual and temporal power. They didn't lose power when Rome fell. They gained it, because they were no longer constrained by imperial law, no longer had to share power with an emperor, no longer had to pretend they served the public good. In the medieval world, power was openly hereditary, explicitly hierarchical, honestly extractive. They just stopped pretending. And the people who suffered? The ordinary Romans who believed in the empire? They became serfs, peasants, bound to the land. serving the same families who'd once claimed to serve them. That's what the fall of Rome really meant. Not the end of civilization. The end of the pretense. Marcus's original scroll is gone. But pieces survived. The Vatican letter from Ambrose. That's real. Document 4721 in the Apostolic Archive. A fragment found in Egypt in 1952. Part of a ledger showing tax discrepancies. Dated 362 AD matches Marcus's descriptions. A reference in the writings of Ammianus Marcellinus, a Roman historian. He mentions a clerk who claimed to have evidence of systematic corruption at the highest levels. Dated 368 AD, the year Marcus died. There are others. Scattered. Incomplete. But consistent. Historians ignore them. Because they complicate the narrative. Make Rome's fall look less like tragedy and more like crime. But the evidence is there. For anyone willing to look. I've spent 5 years researching this. Following Marcus's trail. And everything points to the same conclusion. Rome's fall was orchestrated. By Romans. For profit. Everything else, barbarians, Christianity, moral decay, was symptom or cover story. The truth is simpler. And darker. Empires don't fall. They are pushed. You might be thinking, this is ancient history. What does it matter now? It matters because we're living through the same process. Watch what's happening around you. Not the headlines. The patterns underneath. Who's getting richer while infrastructure crumbles? Who's building private security forces while public police are defunded? Who's moving wealth offshore while public services collapse? Who's buying land, resources, and political influence? Who's preparing for a future where the current system no longer exists? They're not hiding it. They're doing it openly. Just like the Roman elite did. Because they've learned the lesson of history, you don't fight the collapse. You position yourself to profit from it. Marcus tried to warn Rome. He failed. But he left a record. We have that record now. Not just his, but centuries of examples. Patterns repeated across time and space. We know how this story ends. The question is, will we choose differently? Or will we repeat Rome's fate? Watch the system be dismantled. Then wonder how it happened. The choice is ours. While we still have one. If you made it this far, you're part of a small group who sees the pattern. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to understand. Comment below. Do you see the parallels? Or am I wrong? Let's talk about it. Because this conversation matters. So here we are. The end of our journey. We started with Marcus Flavius, a forgotten scribe who saw the truth. We followed his discovery through Rome's last century. Watched an empire be systematically dismantled. We saw the network of elites who orchestrated it. The church that enabled it. The barbarians who were really employees. We traced the pattern through history. Saw it repeat in empire after empire. And recognized it in our present. But here's the final revelation. The thing that makes all of this make sense. It's not conspiracy. It's not even particularly coordinated. It's rational self-interest, multiplied across thousands of actors. making the same logical choice. When a system is failing, those with power and resources prepare for what comes next. They extract what they can, build parallel structures, position themselves for the transition. They don't need to meet in secret rooms. They just need to read the same economic indicators, see the same warning signs, make the same rational calculations. That's what happened in Rome. It's what's happening now. Not conspiracy. Convergence. Of interests. Of incentives. Of rational selfishness. The system isn't being destroyed by evil. It's being dismantled by logic. Cold. Economic. Inevitable. Unless we choose differently. Unless we decide the collective good matters more than individual gain. Unless we rebuild that agreement Marcus described. The agreement that made empires possible in the first place. That's the real secret of Rome's fall. And the real choice we face. Not whether the system will change. It will. But whether we change it. Or it changes without us. Marcus Flavius died trying to warn Rome. His scroll was destroyed. His name forgotten. But his message survived. In fragments. In letters. In patterns repeated across history. And now you know it. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. Thank you for taking this journey with me. If this changed how you see history, or the present, let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into historical secrets that connect to our modern world. And tell me, what empire, mystery, or pattern should we explore next? The truth is out there. We just have to be willing to look. Sleep well. Dream deep. And remember Marcus Flavius, the man who saw the end, and tried to stop it. His story is over. Ours is still being written.